In today's video, I wanted to talk about the Boston Celtics and how they've really been able to turn their season around. And this is a team that, as a Raptors fan, I don't necessarily like them or cheer for them at all. And I actually didn't think they would do that well this season. I think a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference, or at least I thought at the start of the season, were better than the Celtics. And I actually had them being the 10 seed in my conference standings this season. And earlier in the year, it was looking like that might be the case, and I was looking like a genius. And they were actually 18-21 on January 7th. But ever since that point, they've gone 19-6, now sit with a record of 37-27, 10 games over 500, and are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and may be able to avoid even playing in that play-in tournament and just getting right into the playoffs. So this team's really turned it around, and I've been watching quite a few of their games recently in some film, and I wanted to just come on here today and analyze the real reasons they've been able to turn it around and what's been working out for them, and if they can seriously contend in the Eastern Conference this year. So let's get into it. So before the season started, the reason I thought that the Celtics would underperform this year is because they didn't have good enough depth, and I thought especially offensively they would be too one-dimensional of a team, relying too much on Jason Tatum and I guess Jaylen Brown as well. And at the start of the year, this is definitely what happened for the Celtics, and I was definitely looking like my prediction was right. They were relying on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown way too much. Because of this, Tatum was having a very underwhelming season. He was very inefficient. There was one point in the year where he was shooting only about 40% from the field and 30% from three. His shot selection was off. He was trying to do too much, and really all of the Celtics starters were, because they had to essentially pick up the slack of the poor depth on this team and how their bench wasn't able to provide them with enough. So they had to really carry a lot of the load, especially Tatum and Brown. But as the season's gone on, and really ever since we've entered 2022, the Celtics have relied on their bench a little bit more. They're giving their role players like Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard, going out and acquiring Daniel Tice again. They're giving these guys minutes. They're relying on them a little bit more, and these guys are coming in and playing their roles well, especially on the defensive end of the floor, which is really the main reason why the Celtics have gotten back to being a good team in the Eastern Conference and a top 6 or 7 team. And I think what was maybe one of the other problems for this team earlier in the year was how they are not used to not being coached by Brad Stevens, who of course now is in a front office position with this team. But Ime Udoka took over this team, and originally I don't think he was really doing that good of a job, and this Celtics team just wasn't used to being coached, like I said, by someone other than Brad. And Ime came in, and he wasn't exactly doing a bad job, but their defensive system and their overall chemistry and how both of their offense and defense function and flowed, it just wasn't really the same. But as the year has gone on, Ime Udoka has done a really good job with his team, and all of a sudden they have one of, if not the very best defenses in the NBA, and their offense seems to be flowing a lot better now. There's a lot much better ball movement on the floor. It's not one-dimensional like it was earlier in the year, and everything just as an overall team for the Celtics is just looking better, and Ime Udoka has just really improved as an overall coach this year, and I think that has really been the main reason for their success. When we look at this team specifically on the defensive end of the floor, over the last month or so, they have turned into probably the very best defensive team in the NBA. And earlier in the year, they were definitely a good defensive team and probably top 10 in the NBA. But like I said, really over the last month or so, they've emerged into probably one of, if not the very best defensive team in the NBA. And I think it really just all starts with the coaching and how Ime Udoka has turned this team into having one of the best defensive systems in the NBA, and how much chemistry this team has on the defensive end of the floor. They're extremely switchable, and even when their opposing offenses get good ball movement going and good overall offense going, the Celtics are really able to counter that by having a very switchable style of defense. Really, anyone can guard anyone, and a lot of guys on this team are just so versatile, and that's why this style is able to work for them. Guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can guard pretty much 1 through 4. Marcus Smart, despite being a little bit smaller, is one of the better defenders in the entire NBA, and even he can switch onto bigger guys. Pretty much he can defend 1 through 4 as well. A guy like Peyton Pritchard can do the same thing. Even though he's small, he's a pretty good versatile defender. Grant Williams can pretty much defend anyone on the floor. Robert Williams and Al Horford, despite being really big guys, they can switch onto the perimeter, and pretty much everyone that's in the rotation on this team is very switchable, and because they can switch everything, that really doesn't mean that there's ever going to be a bad switch on the floor and a matchup that someone can pick on. Before this season, the Celtics had Kemba Walker, and even though he was sometimes good for them and provided some good things offensively, this gave teams someone to pick on the defensive end of the floor. If you get a bad switch against Kemba, he's a poor defender, usually defensive liability, and he could have been picked on, and he was picked on a lot of times when he was on the Celtics. But because the Celtics don't have Kemba, and they don't really have anyone anymore who is a bad defender or really even just under average defender, they just have a lot of good defenders that are versatile, they're switchable, and they can guard at least 1 through 3, a lot of them 1 through 4, and some of them even 1 through 5. And something that also really stands out about this team's defense is just how good their interior defense is, especially. When Robert Williams isn't on the floor, Al Horford is a pretty good interior defender, but Robert Williams, I'm telling you right now, this guy is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and I would probably go as far to say that he's in my top 10 defenders in the NBA right now. He is just that dominant of a defender. His rim protection ability is just absolutely insane. The presence that he has at the rim, if he's not blocking shots, just his presence alone scares guys away that are driving into the paint. And especially if he gets 1 or 2 nasty blocks on you, that's going to get in your head. You're going to be scared to go into that paint. And because of this too, the Celtics don't really have to have their wing players shrink the floor and crowd in the paint and collapse in the paint. They can really just focus on their matchup because Robert Williams is just that good of a rim protector and also a pick and roll defender. Robert Williams has a defended field goal percentage of about 42% when he's defending under the basket to where the easiest shot in basketball comes. That is just absolutely insane. He is truly one of the best defenders in the NBA. He plays his role offensively, and I actually made an entire video about him and how I think he's the most underrated player in the NBA, and you guys should go check that one out as well for some more in-depth analysis on him. But I really think that if you don't have him in your top 15 centers in the NBA right now, you are criminally underrating him, and you got to watch him play. Especially his defensive value is amazing, and he's really the main reason that the Celtics have the best defense in the NBA right now. That combined with their very switchable style and the many other talented defenders like Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown that they have on this team, this is allowing them to have the best defense in the NBA right now. And when we look at some stats here to back this up, the Celtics have the second best defensive rating in the NBA right now, only percentage points behind the Warriors, who have the number 1 defensive rating. They have the best opponent's field goal percentage in the NBA right now. They have the second best opponent's points in the paint, so they allow the second least amount of points in the paint by their opponent, and then they're also second in blocks with over 6 per game. And again, this just speaks to how good of an interior defending team they are, and specifically how good of an interior defender Robert Williams is. Overall, this team is just so good defensively, and this is where it started for them. And in this run since January 7th, where they're going 19-6, it all starts with the defense. And their defensive style in Robert Williams' incredible interior D, this is the real reason right here that the Celtics have been able to turn it around. Now, with that being said, their offense as well has gotten a lot better as well. Like I said, over the course of this season, this team has really developed better chemistry. Ime Udoka is getting more used to his players. He's developing a better defensive system by far and a better offensive system as well. Like I mentioned earlier on in the video, early in the season they were relying way way too much on specifically Jason Tatum to go and really make the offense for this team and create his own shot and pretty much do everything on his own in the post, in isolation. And because of this, his numbers were very inefficient. And like I said, at one point in the year, he was shooting only about 40% from the field, 30% from three, and about a 52 or 53% true shooting. But he has definitely brought this up, and his season averages now, he's averaging 26 points per game and shooting about 43.5% from the field, 33% from three, 85% from the free throw line, and an overall 55% true shooting. So his overall efficiency is getting kind of to around that average stage in the NBA right now, which is very impressive when earlier in the year his numbers were very much down, and he still is creating his own shot off the dribble a lot of the time. So his improvement has definitely come into play here. The shooting for the Celtics team has gotten a lot better. Their interior scoring is getting up there with some of the best teams in the NBA, and overall just their offensive flow, their screening, the plays that they're running, them getting out in transition, especially the ball movement and passing on this team, and the overall chemistry has just gotten a lot better. And overall, their offensive flow has just improved a lot, and I think just in general on both ends of the floor, the coaching and chemistry on this team has improved a lot, and because of this, they have really solidified themselves and proved myself wrong, at least, that they are now proving once again to be one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference and in the conversation to be potentially a top 5 team in this conference. Now, can the Celtics actually be serious championship contenders this year and maybe find a way out of the East? I really don't know about that one. This is a really stacked conference here with teams like the Bulls, Heat, Sixers with the best duo in the NBA right now in Harden and Embiid, the Nets who are still going to be a force, the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, even my Raptors, another dark horse team there. So the fact that the Celtics are going to probably have to beat one of those top 3 teams in the East, I'm not sure if they can make it out of the first round, but I honestly would not be surprised if they do make it out of that first round, and you could potentially see this team going as far as the Eastern Conference Finals this season, but I would probably put that as their ceiling right now. I don't think they're as good as they were a few years ago, and I wouldn't classify them as serious championship contenders, but like I said in today's video, they have definitely made a comeback. They've proved that they're not a fighting for the playoffs kind of team. They are definitely kind of in that top 8 to top 6 in the Eastern Conference and have improved with their overall coaching, chemistry, and especially their dominant defense, which is probably, especially recently, the best in the NBA right now. So that's my analysis on the Celtics and the real reason why they've been able to improve this season and really make a great comeback. So definitely be sure to leave your guys' thoughts down below in the Celtics and why you think they've been able to turn around this season. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next video.